when feedback is mentioned, even the word, is just our brain goes the opposite direction. And thank you so much for everybody who is joining. It's Friday. I know that's the last thing you want to do, learn something, but hey, we need to in order to move forward and move organizations forward, right? Employees' needs are changing, everything is changing, and therefore we need to get new ideas, fresh ideas. I would never say that my idea is the best idea. There's no such a thing. It's probably 10 best ideas put together is the 11th is the best idea, but it's always all about what is it that what works, and what is it that maybe we could do instead. And so those of you who don't know me, I'm Sylvia, I'm an organizational psychologist, and I help companies build modern workplaces so employees can have a better employee experience, and you guys can stop complaining and moaning about high turnover and low engagement rate. Now, let's talk about feedback. And feedback is something that is it's used all the time. It's in the management and leadership books, right? And we are taught that we need to be given feedback, we need to give feedback, and everybody wants feedback. Now, the science and research data is divided on that, like on everything. Some of the latest research shows that people don't need feedback, they need something else. And other research data for example, from the American Workplace Index, they say that feedback is not important to employees. And other ones, they show that it's very important in terms of to manage performance. Now, what is true, we will never know, because this is the beauty of research and science. They can contradict each other. So the best way to do is really look at what do my team members need. And that's why I always like to tell leaders, don't listen to leadership books, read them to get ideas, but you need to go directly to your team members in order to manage them, to see what they actually want. Now, feedback. Let's start with feedback, because feedback is something that we all want, but we all hate at the same time. The moment they mention feedback, our brain shuts down. Science proved that. And we just really don't know what to do with it. We have been dragged into several workshops, millions of training courses. We read everything, we give them frameworks, yet we still run away from feedback. And the reason is because we misunderstood. Feedback is a fantastic tool, and I would like to give you a new perspective on feedback that maybe you have never thought about it that way. Let's start with, what is the definition of feedback? Feedback is basically, the definition of feedback is information about reaction, right, to a product or somebody's performance or behavior. Now, if we stay with this, so it's a reaction to somebody's performance, to a product, to a behavior. If we stay with that definition, it's very easy to see that feedback is a very useful tool. It makes you socially accepted. So sometimes when I run a workshop for senior leaders and I ask them, what makes you socially acceptable? What makes us accept you here, sitting with us for 8 hours? And they don't have the answer. And the answer is feedback. Because just think about it. The moment you were born, you've been given feedback. Like maybe 1 million feedback by the time you are whatever age you are right now. So you are giving millions of feedback the moment you are born that shapes your behavior, your thinking, and even your belief. Without these feedbacks, we would be either dead or a social outcast. So how does it look like? How do we receive feedback? So when you remember when you were small, you don't remember, but when you were small, you started to crawl and you went somewhere that you're not supposed to go, your mom said no, or just looked at you in the wrong way, and you immediately knew no. That's a feedback. That's designed to keep you alive, to keep you out of danger, right? Out of harm's way. Then when you talked back to your parents and they just looked at you, my grandmother used to look at me and I'd run the opposite direction. She didn't need to say any words, right? Then when somebody in the office is trying to gossip about another person, but you are not that type, right? And you don't react. You just stay quiet, or you just say, yeah, and you don't further the conversation. That's a direct feedback, and that person quickly realizes that you are the wrong person to gossip with. Or when you are on a public transport and you stand close to somebody, right? And that person just looks at you or steps away, just one step. That's a given feedback. It tells you, hey, you're standing too close, you came into my private area, and now that's not okay. So feedback is so crucial for not only to keep you alive, but also to be socially acceptable. So why are we so scared? What happened with something that is so natural and something that is designed to keep you alive and socially acceptable? Because if you are not socially accepted, you are an outcast. You would perish very soon, right? And when you look at, and when I explain this to team members, when I explain this to leaders, they have a very different perspective on feedback. So it's really for you to be socially acceptable. Now, in corporations, we take it a little bit forward. So give me a thumbs up if you had a feedback in the month of October. Just how many days? 20 days. Give me a thumbs up if you had feedback. Thank you. In the month of October. Very good. Give me a thumbs up if you had a feedback from anybody, forget about work, in the month of October. You had plenty. Your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your friends, they probably gave you a feedback. If not, even just a look that, hey, that's not okay, or it's okay, I love what you are doing, thank you. So feedback is flying up and down constantly. But however, we turned feedback, this fantastic tool, into something that we don't like, and the reason why feedback don't work. Now, before I tell you what we turned it into, is there are two prerequisites to feedback to be received, okay? Because we always teach people how to give feedback, but we never teach people how to receive feedback, and that's a massive mistake that we make. So before we even think about giving feedback to somebody, and before we think about receiving feedback from somebody, the prerequisite to this valuable conversation, or for a feedback to be valuable, is trust and respect. If I don't trust you, there is no way I'm going to accept the feedback from you, because it's just not what we do. And respect is not necessarily as a person, because we would like to think that we provide feedback as an individual, as a person, to everybody, but it's more about, in the context of a workplace, is your credibility and respect for your competence. If I deem that you are not competent enough to give me feedback, and I have seen it, I know it hurts, so listen, if I have seen it many times, if I don't think that you are competent enough to give me feedback, I am not going to take it. And this is where corporations go wrong. This is where we align, we follow the chain of command, and everybody, oh, this is your supervisor, she should give you feedback. This is your manager, she should give you feedback. That is the worst strategy I have ever seen in corporations, because that's why nobody is listening to anybody. The person who's supposed to give you feedback is the person who you respect and accept and trust. And that could be not the person who you like, because I have worked with individuals who I didn't really, like as a person, but I trusted them, and I valued them and respected them as professionals. So I always went to them that, hey, tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. So this is the prerequisite. Now, let's go back to what we turned this valuable feedback into. And we turned it into an opinion competition. I see that feedback is all about your opinion, your source of truth about me. And this is when people push back. We don't like that game, okay? And if you think about, let's be honest, and just give me a thumbs up if you agree what I'm going to say. If you think about, just think about some of your feedback, you will notice a fascinating pattern. Whether you give feedback or whenever you give feedback, it is always in line with your beliefs, with your values, with your personality, your ethics, and what is it that you would do. And nobody cares about that, believe it or not. I am not having the same values as you do. I am not the same person as you do. And this is where feedback goes wrong. Because all we do is, it's a normal reaction. From what place would you give a feedback if it's not your moral values or ethical stance, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I just want you to be aware of that. And the feedback sometimes, or many times, they sound like this. You would be better off if you felt like that, or if you did like that, which is, or you think like me. It's always the undertone of everybody's feedback is, you would be better off if you did as I do, or as I did, or how I feel. I had a conversation with a leader the other day, and the exercise was about an employee burned out. And the leader, you know what the leader's response was to this? That, you should never confuse or mix work and private life. And I looked at him, I'm like, what did you just do in here? You completely disregarded what the person is saying, and you now impose your opinion, your way of thinking, and your way of doing, maybe, I don't know, of work-life balance. But that's not what we wanted. That was a completely useless conversation and feedback that person could have ever given. So basically what we do is we give people this feedback that is not feedback, is really your advice and opinion disguised as feedback. And that people feel that, and they don't like that. So tell me, give me a thumbs up if you agree with that we went wrong with feedback, and this became an opinion contest. Thank you. It's all about your opinion and about me. And you remember, thank you very much, guys. And remember, you are not the source of truth of anyone, right? Because everybody is very, very different. So if you want, but what is it that we can do? If you want to give valuable feedback, this is what we need to do. You give feedback to the person, but before you do that, you give your reaction, okay? So your reaction is much better. And we have trained people on that. When you give people your reaction instead of your advice or your opinion, it's a very different one, because this is how it looks like. Let's say you are part of my workshop and I was so boring, okay? You have fallen asleep. That's okay. Sometimes happen, especially with operational people, they're not used to sit. The moment you get them sitting down, they fall asleep immediately. But what you can do is not telling me that, it's because the feedback would look like, look, this was so boring. If I was you, I would have done ABC. That's your private opinion. Maybe 200 other people in the room were quite alert and paid attention. So that's literally your opinion about me, related to your experiences that you have fallen asleep. Now, you can give me your reaction. You can say, look, I fell asleep. I don't know why, maybe if ABC. But the moment you say, I fell asleep, then it opens up the conversation, because then I can be curious enough and say, oh, okay, tell me why. And this is when you can start giving people not your feedback, but asking question. Sometimes when we give them feedback and it feels like when you are giving feedback, most of the time people know what they are doing wrong. They already know. When you are giving feedback about the good performance, they already know. So that's kind of reinforcing it. It's very, very important. But when we are giving feedback, when it's related, when we want people to improve the performance, telling them what was wrong is useless because they already know. They just don't know how to fix it. And this is when you start turning the page. So instead of giving a feedback and throwing like a grenade on the other side, here is my feedback, the person went to pieces, but you did your job, you gave your feedback. The person is dead, don't know what to do with it, but you did because somebody in your leadership team and the trainer in your L&D guy said, we need to give feedback. So take the person. State your response to the performance, whatever it is, the performance, the behavior, what the person just said. Look, this is here is my reaction to it. I still don't understand how this strategy would help us solve this problem. Don't say that this strategy is, it's not going to work. That's your opinion. Say, I don't see still, after you presenting it for half an hour, I don't see how that strategy would solve our problem. So then you can open up the discussion. If you need to give feedback, what you do is response, create your, offer your reaction, and then you became a coach. You provide coaching attention because you remember last week I said the biggest motivation in your toolbox is attention. If you don't pay attention to people, they will never perform, no matter what kind of best system and trainings you have in place in your company. So how do you do that? You take and you provide coaching attention. Instead of just throwing a grenade on the other side, you go to the other side of the employees. So together, you'll view the point of the employee, where the employee is seeing that problem from, right? Or what is the situation the employee is in. And then together, you try to figure out how to move forward. Because feedback is, I'm giving you your feedback, you are a horrible person, and that's it. That's my feedback. What am I doing with that? I don't even know what you mean. But then, instead of doing this, you come to me, Sylvia, I really did not appreciate the way you talk to me. Let's chat. What is it that we can do so I don't feel that way ever again? You don't make me feel that way ever again. And together you figure out and you provide coaching attention, not coaching attention to that employee, and set the ground for moving forward, for a better performance. And when you do that, you start opening up a conversation, and you will learn areas of employees that they struggle with and you never knew about. And you will learn how that person actually most of the time know the problem, and they will tell you, you know what, I know about that, but I just don't know how to figure it out or how to fix it. So now it's the perfect opportunity. Okay, that's great. And here you can now go with your feedback if you really want to, but figure out what would be the best for the person to move forward. Now, you guys, if somebody wants to open up I can open up the question. If you want to come up to talk, just put your hands up. More than happy to answer, and really just turning that feedback culture. Chris, do you want me to bring you up? I'm happy to do that. Let me just do this. No? Yes. Okay. Here we go. You can unmute your mic. And there you are.
Good morning, Sylvia. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
Oh, it's fantastic Friday. It's another great day to be alive and another gift, not only to receive, but to give as well. This is my take on this great and engaging conversation about feedback that actually motivates for all of us to do better. think about it this way, Sylvia. Maybe it's about having curiosity in mind. Once
Yes.
we have curious driven conversation that's not only rooted in curiosity, but it's not about us, but it's about them. And we can choose curiosity over clash and use conversations just like these, or even opportunities like these, to move the dialogue forward for all involved. And then maybe, just maybe, we can all then be rooted in common purpose, but we can recognize it's not about an employee dynamic anymore. It's truly about a partnership dynamic. What say you?
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's not an employee. It's really a partnership for me to move to forward with my performance and curiosity. Absolutely, you cannot just give information out without being curious or wanting to know why your employees are performing the way they perform. It's the same with motivation. You cannot come with a ready-made solution. This is how I'm going to motivate Sylvia. You cannot come with ready-made solutions. This is how I'm going to get Sylvia to work an extra hour, because Sylvia is very, very different. And we need to start moving towards this partnership role, and also this individualized approach to employees, because we get lost in the system. We get lost. Thank you very much, Chris. I absolutely agree with that. Be curious. And many times, even today, I had a conversation with the senior leader, and he said, I'm here to run the business. I'm not here to listen to people's problems. And I literally made a note for myself to write something about it. And I said to him, I'm like, look, you are not there to solve people's problem or be a counselor, right? That's not what we say. But if you want to manage employees' performance, if you ignore everything and all you want to do is get the job done, you are going to lose that game, because people are not work machines. People they come with their feelings. I always say that it's like the Instagram versus reality. Managers, sometimes they want employees to come ready, to come trained, to come already know what needs to be done, not to ask questions, not needed to be given feedback, not to needed to be given training. And just to come there and be ready, and not to bring their private life, not to bring their emotions, not to bring, and we say these things, keep private life and work separate. That's easy to say, but we all know that it's very difficult to practice. So this is Instagram version of employees. The reality is the exact opposite. Employees need to be guided, coached, trained, spend time with, paid attention to, and they will come with their emotions. And if we just disregard everything, and this is what I said to that person, I'm like, if you want to manage their performance, and I understand you need to pay attention, and I understand that companies are designed to push, right? And I have no problem with it, because if we are not pushed, even the most self-motivated employees, we spend, first of all, it would be me on a Friday afternoon. I don't do a lot of work. I'm already switched off. I couldn't care less. I will do all the job until lunchtime and I'm done. So if you want to get something out of me on a Friday afternoon, you really need to push Sylvia. And so even the most self-motivated employees need pushing, and companies are designed to do that. So push. I'm okay with it, because this is how we get people to perform better. But how far do we push? This is where it all comes down to. What is the line? And this is what I asked the senior leader. Where do we draw the line? How far you can push me before I burn out? How far you can push me before I disengage? How far can you push me, as Sylvia, before I say it's enough, or has a physical or impact on my physical or mental health? Have we had this conversation, Chris?
Well, think about this, Sylvia, and you're bringing up some great points, but think about this. It's not about the push. It really isn't. It's about the motivation. It's like what John C. Maxwell says in his great book, The 21 Uniform Laws of Leadership. The greatest myth out there is that we equate leadership and management to be one and the same, but they're two polar opposites in scope. Because leaders not only lead, but also they not only create more leaders, but they also to create more followers in context. But also what managers do is they only manage the day-to-day, the workflow, the processes. That's all they were there to do. But the question then becomes, Sylvia, do we want to lead or do we want to manage? And I truly believe we should always go toward the place of leadership, because if I can see what you see and believe, and then you can see what I see and believe, and like I said earlier about really being curious about that in a way, it creates an opportunity for growth, opportunity for thriving, opportunity to learn and listen and to grow. Then next thing you know, it becomes a true collaborative kind of dynamic to such a degree that not only will everyone take ownership in what they do and why they do it, but it might end up turning into their passion, might turning into their purpose. And then when they get behind that in the vision of a company that maybe you started or you're a part of or whatever the case may be, they will follow you, because the best investment is the human investment. Because when you invest in them and you get that investment right back in return, it's truly valuable, and it's really viable, and it's literally something that is just innate to each and every single one of us. Because you're absolutely right. We are human beings, not human doers. And if we can really create that environment that not only of the one that we love, not only from a place of leadership, but also followership and context, that's the one we create for them in a way that might turn into the life that they love. We create a community and an environment and literally a culture that can grow and thrive from every aspect known to man. And if we can do that in a way that not only creates the end results that we are wanting to have in that organization and in that team or whatever that might be, but we want it to be done in a way to where it benefits all. And if we can really do that, and again, not make it about us, but make it about them, and maybe even this, ladies and gentlemen, put it on their timetable, not on ours, then I truly believe if we can let go of the outcome that we seek, we can be able to get the outcome that we seek. Because see, it's always about the perception. Because if we perceive them being in one way, when it actually they're in 180 degrees in the opposite, then we're not really seeing what they are seeing. But if we can actually see that and know that, and they see that in return from us, not only will that human investment will grow, it becomes the next evolution of humanity in business, where human development actually will take place, to where not only our professional development is really taken care of, but also our personal development in tow. And that's what we truly believe here at Bringing Humanity Together.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Miroslav up. Thank you, Chris. I agree. Bringing in the human aspect into that. Miroslav, you are up. Just unmute yourself. And just down below, the little mic, you can unmute and you can speak, Miro. No? Okay, let me know if you figured it out. There you are. No? Okay.
There might be some issues on LinkedIn. That's why I've been hearing, Sylvia, that people will come up on stage and it might be a thing. So you can always do this. If you're on your mobile, go from your mobile to your laptop. Or if you're on your laptop, go to mobile, or come in and out of the room, and sometimes that usually helps.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Thank you. I'm just navigating through my laptop. But you guys, to summarize this really, and bringing back a motivation and feedback is so crucial. Bring in the human element, right? But when you are giving feedback, it's really be curious. That's the number one. Make sure that there is a respect and trust in between the two person. And if it's not you, don't be scared to say that, look, I'm not the right person to give feedback to that guy or that person, Be okay with it, because your ultimate purpose is to have that message passed on and that person to receive it, right? Because we never think about who is going to and how is it going to be received. Also think about receiving a message or feedback. Is not always every feedback, as I mentioned, is verbal. Sometimes just read the room. Sometimes we also need to teach people how to receive feedback, non-verbal feedback, you know, because this is also a missing element. So maybe we can talk about it in another session. But it's really make sure that you give your reaction to people, to what they've done, whether it is negative or positive. So when it's positive, celebrate it. And that's a feedback. And then they're going to do more of those, right? And then you motivate and the performance will accelerate like crazy. And then once you give your reaction, you then move into a coaching attention. You pay coaching attention to the person. And now you are curious. Now you are asking questions. Now you are trying to look at the situation from the employee's side. And then have that dialogue, have that partnership, have that conversation. Okay, what is it that we can do in here? And once you get there, you will see, it takes a lot of time. So it's not just the grenade approach. I throw the grenade to your side, but it takes actually effort and time. But this is where management skill and leadership skills gets into. Just throwing a passive-aggressive feedback sometimes, or comment, we think it's feedback, but it's most of the time is a passive-aggressive comment, doesn't help anyone. Nobody has ever got this message. Then you just create enemies, and making sure that your employees are shutting down from the rest of the feedback and your future feedback. So you guys, I hope something it was useful for you, and also ask the question, how far can I push my employees? Because do I want to push? Chris also throw this question. Do we want to push? Do we want to pull? I believe sometimes we need to push. Sometimes we are pulling. You know, there is no one way approach. Is like, do we want to manage or do we want to lead? Sometimes we need to do this. Sometimes we need to do that. And if you have the hierarchy to allow that to happen, then you can clearly design those structures and roles around, but you know, we swing between all these push and pull, lead and manage, and there is nothing wrong with it, but always ask, how far can I push that particular person? And include that into your coaching conversation or feedback and your coaching. Well, you guys, thank you so much for your Friday attention. I hope it was useful, and just make that happen. Coach people, provide attention, and your reaction. They will love your reaction. You remember, you've been given hundreds and millions of reactions since you were born. We are very good at that. Thank you very much, and enjoy the weekend.